Well, hey, we're drawing our pretty man and beautiful boy of Hollywood, as you can see. Well, I don't have to say any, I don't have to introduce him. Now, to start with, we have that angle here, which is kind of like 5 degrees angle. Then I will go and put a line, or restrict the face, or mark the beginning and the end of the face with the jaw. Go for the outline of the eyebrow, hair, eyebrow, nose, mouth, and the chin, and also add the shadows. But keep in mind that 5 degree angle. This eye is slightly lower than that, but very, very little, a couple of millimeters, if that. But it looks much lower, but it's not that low, but it's because of he's actually doing that expression that is typical of him. And his upper lip going up, so he's kind of smiling. That's kind of like the Mona Lisa smile, Brad Pitt smile, his trademark. Anyway, so let's go for it. Let's go for his face. Hello again. Let's go for this famous actor. Now, as I explained on the entrance, the introductory video, we have the axis of Brad Pitt, which is an angle of that sort, maybe a bit more to the right, and then his jawline that way on the light area where the light comes here from the left, from the right. You got his hair, and top of the head, hair here as well, which goes left, right, and quite natural here. That's the end of the hair, so that's the top of the head. I would make the end, or I would decide for the end of his face here, and here, the neck, ear as well. Ear is here, eyebrow here, eyes just a little bit lower, nose, yes, cast shadow of the nose to the left. Then we've got the eyes here, his eye. This eye is kind of smiling here, yes, and this end of the lip higher than this one, lower lip, a little bit of a goatee here, beard, and his upper lip higher. Here we have the shadow of the eyebrow and tip of the nose, the beginning of the nose. Then you have here the shadow of the nose, his eye. I think that must be the period of the picture from his movie Fury, which is an amazing movie. And then a little bit of more hair, a little bit wider here on that left-hand side. And then top of the ear, that's here, and a little bit more to the left, the ear. End of the earlobe is at the line of the end of the nose here. And neck. Now all this area here, it's a little bit darker. And then we have some high reflected light on the left hand side here. And also a bit of shadow here. That's under his eye, which is basically the eye bag. His eye here, left hand side, left eye, left hand side here. As I said, it's quite. These are his typical facial expressions. And on a vertical line, end of his eye, vertical line, that's his moustache. There. And here I have a real vertical line, which is the end of his face. That is a perfectly vertical, just this part here, up to that point, and then goes inwards. The line turns inwards like this. His hair, and kind of he's blonde, so a little bit less dark hair here, and I do have a very light tone, again looking for the light tonal values, because again he's very light hair. On the top of the eye here we have where the hair goes deep inside, and you have a dark tonal value here. Then you have flicks of hair coming all around on the top of his face. Soft tonal value, light tonal value here, light tonal value there, and his tip of the nose, light. And I tend not to draw teeth because they're quite hard to get it right. But this picture is very much like him. He actually, so he does that all the time on interviews. That smile. So I said that will be the characteristics of his facial expression. So I try to avoid teeth, but because it's him, I said, well, I'll do him with a smile. He always does that. A little bit of darker tonal value and a light tone here. There, light tone where the end of the mouth. A little bit of a light moustache because it's grey. The moustache is grey. And then here I have a little where the face ends and where the neck starts. End of the earlobe is probably the ear will need to go even further to the left. And then a little bit of a darker tone on the ear. And the ear, by making it dark, the ear defines the end of the face. Hair, the end of the hair. Here I think I need to make sure that eye bag, it's not heavy because it's young here, so that's not a heavy eye bag for his age. Eyebrow comes a little bit further up here, there, and then I have a little bit of a highlight here. Bring his lower lip there, lower this side of the mouth a little bit more. I get closer. As I can get closer, you can see a little bit more in details what I'm actually doing here. Okay, so get that lower. Of course, I do have a little bit of a shadow here. And cannot avoid not doing the cheek. So if you can see here, I'm using my small finger and stealing some darks from the surrounding darks that are here. So some dark charcoal from wherever I see there's some wherever I can take some charcoal from wherever the hair, at least the hair, because I've got lots of darks here from the hair, and a little bit more of the tear duct. I think the eyes are a little bit closer together than what I've actually done here, so let's give it a little bit more of an attention to the tear duct. It's on a typical vertical line that comes here. Okay, and you have his eye coming in, but not too much detail on this eye because I want to detail the other eye. So as you can see, with a little bit of darks, half tones, I can do everywhere around and have those shadows, put them wherever I need them, those middle tones. I get that darker tone here, and work a little bit more detailed on the bone structure of his nose. And the cast shadow of the nose here. Lighter tone of value on his nostril. Cast shadow of his nose here. A lighter tone on his eye. I've lost his pupil now. Bring it back. Middle tone. Again, using my fingers wherever I can. Making the tonal value a bit softer. And it changes from dark to light. Less strong, because you have lots of darks on the hair, but also where the hair becomes skin, which is on the forehead, you have very, very soft lines, and they're almost not there. His nose, as I said, bone structure of the nose, get it more accurate. I have that little bone here. Probably it's not even bone, it's a skin. Yes, which we all have when you concentrate it, or smiling in this case. A bit of a line here. Well, most people have that. When you're younger, obviously, you don't have it, or much less. And a little bit of his eyebrow. Probably come up with a little bit more forehead. And hair, it's here, there, and everywhere. I'm using the charcoal. First of all, you can see that the charcoal is sandpapered. I've used a lot of sandpapers here, and so the charcoal is very sharp on both sides. It's less sharp now because I'm using it a lot, but you have to keep it in optimal condition, the charcoal. There, and then you have the cheekbone here, and a little bit lighter, so soften all this part of his cheekbone, get the smile back into place. That slightly dark tone of value here, there, and leave it there. You have those skin tanned here, and possibly a little bit wider his neck on this side, light tone on the mustache here, upper lip a little bit darker, lower this side of the mouth a couple of millimeters more, very dark tonal valley where his teeth is finishing, and his white teeth. I think I brought the eyes a little bit closer than what I intended to, and lower this eye even more, and a little bit of a dark tonal value here. His eyebrow a bit lower, hair, get those highlights wherever I can here. And whoops, my charcoal got broken. Okay, let's go back and forth with what's left from the charcoal. A little bit darker tonal value, a little bit more highlights of hair, and there, and some reflected light. Let me go back on the left so you can see the width of the portrait. So here, light tonal value, light. You might say, well, that's hair. Why light? Well, because that's the end of the hair. And by the end, which is right here, the edges are soft. First of all, because he's kind of blonde. He's blonde. And secondly, because you have the background reflecting back on the hair. And a soft general tone here. I'm dipping my finger on charcoal, so if you're wondering where the finger has gone, it's because I'm dipping it onto dark charcoal, and bring back some darker darks, if that makes sense. Dark darks. Lift slightly the lip, shape up with many lines, not one line, many lines. Now, why many? Because first of all, I have a little bit darker tone of value of the lip, because you have lots of blood vessels here, so the lip appears to be darker. And secondly, it's because there's not a particular line there, and many lines, and the viewer's eye decides the final line of the lip. So there is no need to go with one decisive line. That's what professional artists try to do. They decide, not the art of Renaissance, because some in the Renaissance, Holbein, the Dutch artist who worked for the Royal British family, he used loads of lines on his drawings. But slowly we've moved away from those descriptive lines. They were fantastic portrait drawer. Don't get me wrong when I'm talking about Holbein. But slowly we moved away from using lines, or at least I see it that way. By not using lines, you create a more of an atmospheric face, drawing, portrait, whatever. Here I have the end of the... But again, this is my interpretation. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't use lines. There are lots of people who have their own style. But I try to make it more atmospheric than using lines. And his neck, straight down, neck. So a straight down line from the neck, from the eye to the neck here. That's his collar. Sometimes I do use lines, like for instance here, but not on manufactured lines like neck and collar, but not on organic parts like Adam's apple. Again, depending where you are actually working and what parts are you. Let's say if you're working with drapery, of course you've got to use lines. But on organic parts of the face, try not. Here, a little bit more of a shadow of this flicker of hair on his forehead. Again, because the light comes from the left, we have all these reflected lights, all the shadows here to the left. Maybe I could drop a little bit of hair down here on this side of his face. There. There. Get that highlight here, another highlight of his tear duct. Now let's see, actually measure the lower part of his eye here. Horizontal line. I dropped it a lot, so it's a bit higher than that actually. Yes. So his eye is not as low. The top of his eye, his right eye or eye left, it's slightly lower than this, but not much lower. Because it gives the impression it's a lot lower, but it's not the case. So I'm lifting it up a little bit. And some soft shade of he's also tanned in this picture. At least this is how I see this portrait. So probably is tanned, and there are some shading, shadows here, shading, not shadows, shading of his tanned skin. So take some dark from here and create that tanned tone here. and create the cheekbone here. All with fingers, as you can see, soft tonal value, that goes a long way. Because later on when we use the putty rubber, then we need to lift some highlights. Now that I've approached the nose again, I think I've lowered the nose a lot. So I think that's something I need to look for and change. The nose is shorter, his nose is shorter than what I have actually done here. So careful, very, very softly lift up the nostril. And highlights, darker tonal value here, darker tone here, and a little bit of a lighter tone here on the white of the eye. Bring the eye a little bit further up. I'll do that with a putty rubber because I'm running out of clean fingers here. Darker tone, not on the edge of the hair, but here. As I said, I'm running out of clean fingers. Okay, and yes, I see now that I have to go even wider on his face here. And a little bit of a goatee, more of a goatee here, and it's a grey goatee, greyish. So get that right, and a little bit more of a darker tone here, and darker tone on the lip, highlight of the teeth, and a little bit of a moustache here. I mean, the man knows he's a pretty boy, so he just plays with everyone, and those facial expressions he knows that he's very likable, even by man, so he knows that. And so we need to get that flair that he's had, that flair. This is all about to get not only looking like him, if possible, but because we can do another portrait. It doesn't have to look like, but if it looks like him, it's even better. But actually is to create that flair of that expression, which is so difficult to get most of the time. And then here. And get his eyebrows, which are quite wide. Okay, I'll stop for a second to clean my fingers. All right, now that I've cleaned the fingers, I'm trying to measure because I see some inaccuracies. A lot, but at least some which are fairly obvious. Is that he's wider here than what I've done it. I've done him younger, but he's actually a little bit older here. And when people get older, normally they get a little bit wider on the jaw. So I'm measuring the width of the jaw with the chin to the eyebrow, and that is exactly that. Okay, so what I was measuring, the width of the jaw from one angle to this, and my finger goes up and down this way. So this is what I'm measuring here. I'm putting my finger when the line starts or finishes, and then you do that. Well, well, well. On the original picture, the top of the brush goes up here. So I've got him about 3 millimeters thinner. And that's a lot. That's why I was not happy. So I can do two things. Widen this, which is the right thing to do, especially this way, and lower a little bit the eyebrow. So I can lower the eyebrow and at the same time widen the jaw with clean fingers this time, and give it a little bit of a width, even a little bit wider here, or maybe leave that as it is. So leave that line as it is and widen it only on this side, but that means that the ear will have to go even more on the left. Okay, so the ear is here, so the end of the ear, the top of the ear is right at the edge of his eye. Here. That's one. Secondly, top of the ear, bottom of the earlobe is here. There. Okay, here we are. So slightly wider here. And an organic darker shadow. And what I mean by organic, avoiding sharp lines, making it look more like a natural line, or where the background approaches the, let's say, the portrait. Okay, because I'm not thinking straight. Here's the background. This is what I'm doing now, is the background. So instead of doing a line, I can darken the background, and that will give me a sharper line. Instead of using one line, working on the background, and that gives me a sharper line. And that's his end of his lip or lower lip, goes to his collar, and the collar goes that way, and the neck goes a little bit more on the, again a little bit more to the left, but soft edge, because that particular line is further away. So a soft edge shadow or soft edge line, even more. No, that was a lot. So I shouldn't go as far away with his ear now. I need to leave it where it is at the moment and work on the top of the hair. So here, leave the ear where it is at the moment, and here, bit of a darker tone or lights or hair, those lines, the end of the hair, here. Okay, so a bit wider, and that makes him look older as well. And that's what we need here. We need Brad Pitt older. Now, brush and go for a darker tone. Brush, go for a darker tone. Darker tone, brush, take some dust and apply it here. Dust from the charcoal and apply it here. Darker tone, darker tone. And connect those darks with each other, especially here the cheekbone. Now we're going a little bit too far on the left. Closing in the shadow. And you have that line here of his eye, that tweak of his eye. Darker tone here, which marks the eye. Darker tone on that line here. Hair. Soft lines. His crazy hair. I wish I had his crazy hair. Okay, a little bit of darker tones here, and that showed me his beautiful hair, like splattered from all sides. Getting that expression of his hair here. It's all about expression, expressive hair. You can see him going crazy here, in a good sense. And the eye and the eyebrow. Get the eyebrow looking, having that angle directed here. Angle down here, like 10 degrees on both sides. Eyebrow, hair, and I'm getting very close to now doing those little changes now without me blabbing about here, because it's not needed now to go around and talk. It's about figuring out the mistakes that I've done here and making look like him even more by adjusting the eyes using the putty rubber. So I'll try and stop talking and use the putty rubber now. Yellow, light tone. Okay. And then clean your fingers on a paper towel. All right, now I'll go fast so you'll see those changes with a little bit of a hyperlapse. There's no need for me to talk anymore. It's just adjusting lines, adjusting eyebrows and adjusting the eyes and the nose.